Hello, welcome. Today I have a very special video for you. Please let me introduce you to the brand new LEICA SL3 camera. LEICA UK kindly invited me and 9 others to a meetup in Scotland where we would be presented with the LEICA SL3 camera. So in today's video you're hopefully going to receive everything you need to know about this camera, including lots of example photos and hands-on experience using the camera for 2 days. Hi guys, Matt here from MrLeica.com. If you're new here, I've been reviewing Leica cameras and Leica lenses for the last decade, and one of my favourite cameras was the original Leica SL. The Leica SL is my workhorse camera, and to see all the written reviews I'll put a link below, including an SL3 blog to come, and if you prefer videos, I've done around 400 plus videos on YouTube too. Okay, let's get into the Leica SL3. After an early start, I arrived in Scotland with 9 others, and we had a very warm welcome from the Gleneagles Hotel and the Leica UK staff. We all got sat down after a bite to eat, and this was the official Leica SL3 presentation. I'm going to share with you the exact slides we received, and I'll talk through some of the slides as we go. It does look an amazing camera before we even start. Okay, so it's got the new sensor, the same as the Q3 and the M11, which is a 60 megapixel sensor, but it's also got the flip screen of the Leica Q3. So for any of you where your knees are starting to go, or you can't get those low angles, high angles, that you might love the additional screen that's not on the previous Leica SL cameras. You've also got the improved autofocus, which many of you are crying out for. I have tested this in detail in this video, so you'll see that coming up. The SL3's got an improved top LCD display, which is more crisp and just more beautiful, and new icons across the whole camera. I will do a side-by-side test comparing the SL3 to the SL coming up in this video, so stay tuned for that as well. The Leica SL3's got the new higher improved battery capacity, it's got the USB-C charging capabilities, and it's got this new fancy on-off button. In addition to that, for those of you that love the viewfinder, it's got the same viewfinder as the SL2 and SL2S. The SL3 at first glance looks similar to previous models, but it is slightly smaller, slightly lighter, and has the additional thumb wheel on the left-hand side. After a Q&A session with the Leica team, it was time to receive our Leica SL3 cameras. We were led into the next room, and there in front of us was 10 Leica SL3 brand new cameras with a range of Leica SL lenses. I was lucky enough to just grab the one that was closest to me, and that was the 90mm Apo lens. So the first photos you're going to see in this video are shot with the Apo lens, but as you can see there's a whole range of very exciting, very luxurious and expensive Leica SL lenses to choose from. If you follow me on social media at MrLeica.com, you'll know that I use the Leica SL for much of my digital Leica portraits. So how does it compare side by side to the original SL? As you can see, it looks very similar at first glance, although my SL looks smaller because I often use little M lenses rather than the larger high performance Leica SL lenses. Other than that, you can notice the new dial on the top left hand side on the SL3, but to most part at first glance you might not notice the difference between the different cameras. Now, one feature some Leica users were crying out for was better autofocus. So first I'm going to use my standard way of shooting, which is autofocus, AFS and spot mode. This is how I shoot all my portraits, but with intelligent autofocus, you now get that yellow box around someone's head if they recognise it's a person. The Leica UK team kindly organised a falconry display for us at Gleneagles Hotel, and so that allowed us to see how good or bad the autofocus actually was. My first few attempts I was missing, so then I changed my settings. Then I started to hit focus. What I found was with slower moving birds and animals and things, it does recognise the animal, and it does recognise the eyes if the animal is closer or bird is closer to the camera. It also obviously recognises humans, and as you get closer it will recognise the eyes of humans too. It's not, I'd say, quite good enough for a very high hit rate of fast moving objects such as flying birds, but for static birds and maybe slightly slow moving animals I think we'll have no issues. All of these photos are shot with the Leica SL 90mm f2 Apo Summicron lens, and the results are super sharp. Here you can see me changing my settings, and I'm now using the new animal detect mode. You can see it instantly picks up an animal, and on this beautiful peregrine falcon, it kind of locked on very easily. So these are some sample photos shot with the 90mm. These are raw photos straight out of camera, no editing at all. You can see the similar photos, this time on the right hand side with the Mr. Leica preset applied. I have made a brand new Leica SL preset pack, and I'll put a link below to those if you want to get those, including colour and black and white presets. All photos in this video are either raw or edited with my Mr. Leica preset. No additional editing required. The resolution from the 60 megapixel sensor is absolutely fantastic with the SL lenses, and if you're one of those that love to pixel peep, it's just such a good lens for details. Here you can see a few more example photos shot from around the hotel. There'll be more photos coming up, but next let's test the autofocus, this time with humans rather than birds and animals. So I'll set the camera to face detect human mode, not animal mode, and then I tried to focus it myself through a mirror and then basically move myself to see if the camera would track me. So obviously as soon as I bring my eyes up, as you can see, the little boxes go around the eyes. My kind of test was how quickly would it lock on focus, and also if the light was difficult like this, would it still find my eyes. I'd say it's pretty good. I've not used many non-Leica cameras, but it's way better than all the Leica cameras I've ever used in terms of autofocus. And it reminds me more of cameras maybe like Canon R6 or some of the Nikon Z cameras, where it's like flying a fighter jet where you get everything just locked on and it does everything for you. I'm so used to doing everything fully manual. This is all very new to me, but yeah, if you need this kind of super fast autofocus, this is going to suit you. So how does the SL3 compare to my Leica SL? On the left we've got the Leica SL3, on the right we've got the original Leica SL, missing the viewfinder cup, so sorry for that bit missing. At first glance you'll notice the old button layout on the old SL, which is the 4 unmarked buttons. On the SL3 you've got the 3 buttons design, but it's now been moved to the right hand side, because obviously on the left hand side you've now got the screen that's offset to the left. One thing you'll notice, obviously fixed screen on all the previous Leica SL cameras. On the SL3 you have a tilt screen similar to something like the Q3 obviously, but also cameras like the Hasselblad X2D that I reviewed a while back. So apparently they designed it this way because most people wanted it to be functioning this way, they told us in the briefing, and also it's more robust with this sort of design. So same as with a Q3, you can look down on the camera and it gives you that nice viewing angle, but it's less useful for me, say for example if I'm doing portraits, because it doesn't open up this way. So just be aware, if you tend to shoot portrait, it's less useful. So on the old SL, you've got the on-off switch here. You've still got the on-off switch in the same place, but now you've got this very cool looking button which lights up. The screen on the SL3 looks more shiny than on the SL, but that's because I've got a matte screen cover on my SL. There's a lot more buttons and things, icons on the SL3, and the one cool feature is when you turn the camera, the icons move as well. So watch, say MF there for manual focus. I think that's a nice feature. Apparently you can customize all of these, so you can take them on and off to see whichever ones you kind of use the most, so it's fully customizable. If we click the normal home screen by clicking on menu, you've got the normal menu, the same as on a lot of the more recent Leica cameras, where you've got photo, video across. We've got photo, video across the top, and then you've got your usual f-stop, shutter speed, ISO. These apparently, if you hold them down, you can also customize these. I'm not sure. Oh, there you go. That's pretty cool. I won't mess about with it, but yeah. So just to note, you can customize the buttons on your home screen. Viewfinders pretty much would be the same as the SL. So you've still got your nice diopter on the top. You've still got, I think it's 5.76 million resolution, the same as the SL2, SL2S, higher than the SL, which is only 4.4 million. You've still got your joystick. You've still got your customizable button there. And then if we look at the card slot next, so it was twin card slot on previous models. The new one's slightly different. So now, if you can see, can you see that? You've now got one CF Express Type B and one SD like standard card slot. The advantage of that is it's faster to read the CF card. So if you're doing a lot of moving data, say shooting a lot of video, those types of cards are better. And I did test, I think when I tested a Nikon Z6 a while ago versus Leica, I do like the fact that these are so robust. They're much more like a cartridge than an SD card, and I really like that. So I'm not sure about the whole mixing two formats on the same camera, whether people are going to like that or not, but yeah, it gives you both options, I guess. On the top of the camera, if I try and lower them down for you, similar to the SL2, you've got black buttons instead of the old silver buttons. I don't know if you can see that with the light. Same silver button to take your pictures, shutter release. Pretty similar dial on the top, but you now have a new dial on the left hand side. Now I must admit, I've been shooting this camera for about the last 3 hours since they've given them to us to kind of try out, and I've not yet used this dial. So apparently another new feature is this on the side of the viewfinder. See this little button? Apparently this unscrews, and underneath is a PC sync socket, but also it's used for time stamping. So I won't take it off, but yeah, that's a timestamp. If you read up on the info about timestamps, that's what that is. Hot shoes, pretty similar, black hot shoe. Now you've got the SL3 written on the top. You've still got the microphone ports on the top of both cameras, if you can see that here. LCD on the top looks very similar, but the new one looks very pretty, if I can say that in very simple terms. So the font's just really nice. Maybe there's the old font. Obviously this is quite an old camera now, the old SL, but very clear, easy to read. But the new one, the SL3, it's just really nice font. I just think it's very pretty font to look at. Sorry for the marks. So that's the top. So I did notice that straight away, and I was like, oh, that's nice. I've just been taking a few photos for you. That's what that is. That's the room I'm in at the moment. I am here trying to use the window light. Let's try startup time. I'm sure that's not going to matter for many people, but 1, 2, 3. Faster than M cameras. On the front of the camera, again, they look quite similar at first glance. You will notice that the SL3, similar to the SL2 and SL2S, is slightly more rounded, whereas the old SL is a bit more angular on the corners. So that's the same on the previous models, and the twin button on the front is the same on previous models, whereas on the old SL you've only got a single button. On the previous models you've also got this little grip here. I don't know if you can see that. So it's like more of an indent. Sorry, not the camera. More of an indent there, where on the old SL you don't have that. Back to white to logo on both. I think it's slightly bigger on the SL3, and you can see it's a slightly smoother front with an integrated like yoke around the lens mount. See this bit? I'm not sure if that's the same as the SL2. I've never noticed before. And then on the bottoms, again very similar. You've now got a bit more of a textured bottom, but the new SL3 comes with a slightly better, improved battery. So this is the new battery. Here's the old one, and the old one will fit in the new camera, no problem. But apparently you lose some functionality, and the new one will fit in the old one, which would give you more battery life. So if you recently bought an SL and it's only got one battery, if you think you're going to need a second battery, buy the new style battery for the SL3 and Q3, and this battery's got a slightly longer battery life. I think on the end of the camera you might have slightly different ports. Let's have a quick look. Well, you definitely have different ports to this camera because the SL's got really old style ports. So the SL's got vintage ports like that, where the SL3 you've now got microphone, I think that's cable release, headphone jack, HDMI. This one's got HDMI. You've got the one cable that does all three of those things, and the old PC sync socket, which I believe is now under here. Oh, and a USB 3. Another feature of the new SL3 is somewhere there is a USB-C socket for quick charging. So like the M11, You can now charge your SL3 via USB-C, which I think is really useful. Anybody that's on the go. These batteries should last a lot longer, but if you're using autofocus lenses, I've been using a 90mm this morning that was kindly loaned to us with the cameras. I shot through almost half a battery in about an hour and a half because I was using autofocus. If you're using manual focus using M lenses on your SL series camera, the batteries last really, really long time. As you can see, obviously I've got M lenses attached at the moment, which will give you a much smaller setup. And if you want the EXIF data transferring from your LEICA lens to your LEICA SL3, just get a LEICA M to L adapter. So size wise, it's very slightly lower. Can you see, especially here, than the older models. And then you've got the second dial, and it's also lighter. Apparently it's around 80 grams lighter. I can write it on the screen if different. In reality, you don't notice a huge difference, but it doesn't feel heavy. It just feels like an SL, I guess, which I don't think feel too heavy, especially if you use M lenses. I'll just show you around. A huge thanks to LEICA UK for inviting us to Scotland for the launch of the LEICA SL3. I've got quite a nice view, so I'm not really a car photo person normally. That orange car looks so cool, and the pink Porsche behind it, so I can share some sample photos if not already. Here you can see a close-up of these beautiful cars that just happen to be parked outside of our window, and here's some sample photos. First in RAW. These are all completely unedited, straight out of camera with a 90mm lens. And then these photos are with a preset added, and it just gives you that bit more sharpness and that bit more pop. The right hand side with preset left unedited. Okay, now there are some new accessories available with the LEICA SL3. You've got the new battery grip, which is similar to the original battery grip that I've got from my LEICA SL. One of my patrons kind of gave it to me. It holds an additional battery inside, so it basically doubles your battery life, but also it's much more ergonomic. So if you like holding the camera at different angles, or say with large lenses especially, you'll find this very comfortable. The second accessory is a mains power battery. So this is useful if you do tethered photography in a studio. You can basically leave the camera pretty much plugged into the mains via the battery, and it keeps the USB-C jack free for tethering. And then also if you're doing video. And third, you get a twin battery charger. Okay, the LEICA SL3, like the M11, also has perspective control. This is not something I ever played with when testing the LEICA M11, so I thought I'd quickly put it on to show you how it looks with the LEICA SL3. As you can see, it straightens up your parallel lines. Let's say you're shooting up at a building, it's going to crop slightly in camera to give you straight perspective, hence the perspective control. I'll turn it off after this. Okay, how does the LEICA SL perform in low light? So we were kindly invited to a whiskey tasting event in the evening of the first day. And here, if you like wine, you would have been absolutely in your element. Here's a whiskey that was on the table for us to all try out. Sadly, I'm very boring and I'm not really a drinker, so instead I took photos and let the guys enjoy the whiskey. While they were drinking the whiskey, I kind of wandered off into the back of the cellar and I did some low light geeky testing instead. Here you can see some images shot at the different ISO settings, and even up to 50,000 the image quality is excellent, more than usable from this example. Here's a crop in, and with the 60 megapixels, so much detail. If you decide to get the LEICA SL3 preset pack, I've even included a low light preset for such conditions. After that, it was time to leave the cellar and it was time to get something to eat. The next morning I was up early because I wanted to do a low light test before it got too light, and I wanted to compare the SL3 to the SL and also the SL3's different resolution settings. 60 megapixels, 36 megapixels and 18 megapixels. Here you can see my setup. I was trying to use a mix of coloured light, so you've got the first blue light from the left and tungsten light from the right, in case we see any kind of colour shifts or colour cast. Very simple setup. I just had the camera on the table instead of a tripod and took a photo of the little label in front of me. First, the LEICA SL3 versus the LEICA SL. I had the SL3 set to 18 megapixels, so you see the slightly smaller file size next to the 24 megapixel Leica SL. Next, wanted to see how it compared using the SL3 at the different DNG settings. So if you go into your settings, you've got large, medium and small, which is 60 megapixels, 36 megapixels and 18 megapixels. In theory, 18 megapixels should be better at low light and 60 megapixels should be worse. That holds true when I've done my testing of the Leica M11 and Leica Q series cameras. After doing the testing, I thought it's going to be quite difficult to see the differences, so I've done a crop in of the text in the middle, and then for each ISO, 60 megapixels, 36 and 18, but just keep an eye on the text because it does change at the different ISOs depending on what order I shot the photos in. So sorry for the confusion, you might need to kind of pause it and double check. The results are very good, up to around 50,000, I think 100,000 maybe pushing it. Okay, next, day 2 is the weather test, and in true Scottish fashion we had rain, so it couldn't have been planned any better for a weather test. I think a huge shout out again to the Leica team and in collaboration with the hotel for this awesome kind of show of cars with the Leica logos. It made for some amazing pictures. From there we drove up into the Scottish Highlands for maybe 1 hour, and I was lucky enough to have the front seat. Now one thing I did notice when using the, this time 35mm Apo lens on the SL3, is I was really struggling to get focus with autofocus through the windscreen with the rain on the glass. So I switched to manual focus for the photos you're going to see coming up. Our destination, as I understand it, was somewhere high up in the mountains with amazing views across the valleys and scenery surrounding us. It reminded me of the scene from Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, trying to hang out the window yet get clean looking shots of the cars in front. And so with that, let's look at some sample photos in chronological order. You've got RAW on the left and with preset on the right for some photos, and other photos, if not mentioned, are RAW only. As you can see, the kind of the mist really suited some black and white preset action, but I tried to include as many RAW photos as possible to show the performance straight out of camera before I kind of added anything to the pictures. Sorry for any motion blur in some of the photos. I don't think my shutter speed was fast enough for all-terrain photography. We finally arrived at our destination and it was just shrouded in mist and rain and bog, and so we didn't really see anything other than each other and the cars. Thankfully they brought out the hot tea and cookies or biscuits or cakes and things, and yeah, we basically just ended up taking photos of each other. I really enjoyed the kind of reportage style compared to my usual portraits, and yeah, we just turned the cameras on each other, a few of us, and these cameras are so good in the wet weather. It was kind of the ultimate wet weather performance test just by sheer luck that we were shooting in Scotland. If you normally photograph in such conditions but normally use an M camera and you worry about the rain, worry not any further because the Leica SL3 would tick all those boxes and give you the same 60 megapixel resolution. I just had a UV filter on the front of my lens and it was 100% protected and just kept performing right through until we got back to the hotel. As you can see, it was one very wet and soggy camera by the time we'd finished, but all the Leica guys were more than confident that there would be no issues and all their cameras were just as wet. Actually, I think the cameras fared much better in the wet weather than most of us. Now, if you're a regular viewer of this channel, you know that I normally use M lenses on my Leica SL camera. The beauty of the SL series is you can use Leica screw mount lenses, M mount lenses, Leica R lenses, but also modern Leica SL lenses. Now, I haven't reviewed as many SL lenses because I tend to prefer the smaller setup of M lenses and vintage lenses, but there are so many amazing Leica SL lenses available, both primes and zooms. If you want the best performance from a Leica SL3 and using the 60 megapixel resolution, I'd highly recommend considering Leica SL lenses if you don't mind the extra size. As you can see, some of them can be quite beefy. If you plan to shoot in snow and rain, definitely use an SL lens versus an M lens because you're going to get better weather sealing protection. But if you prefer the quirks of different M lenses, here you can see the difference using a steel rim vintage style lens versus the new Apo Summicron. And the beauty is you can buy both these lenses new at the time of making this video. Sadly, after that, it was time to hand in our beautiful Leica SL3 cameras and amazing lenses. The guys were packing them up ready to fly home in their Pelican Air cases. There was a lot of money in these cases. It was time to say farewell to the Glen Eagles Hotel. Thanks to Leica for such an amazing stay. But before we go, what about the final verdict? If you compare the SL3 to the M11, you're going to prefer the SL3 if you want to use the highest performance SL lenses, a more robust design, full IP54 weather sealing, a high resolution EVF, a flip screen, the option of autofocus, and it's $2,000 cheaper. The LEICA SL3 is now the best Leica SL series camera for photos, and it was an absolute joy to use. Again, a huge thanks to Leica UK for my invitation, and as always a massive thanks to my amazing patrons. Thanks for watching, and to see how the previous SL cameras compare, watch this video next.